The loading bay of Station Tertius smelled like burnt metal and recycled air. Arachin wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of grease across his skin. 3 days of hauling freight containers, and he still had 12 hours left on his contract. His muscles ached. His ship needed repairs he couldn't afford, and the station master had already docked his pay twice for being late. He was tired, not just physically. Tired of the way aliens looked through him like he was furniture. Tired of sleeping in his cargo hold because station quarters cost too much. Tired of being human in a galaxy that had moved on without his species. Container 47 needs moving. Greg's voice crackled through the comm. The Krillian dock supervisor never said please. Never said thank you. Just orders all day long. Arachin grabbed the hover dolly and made his way through the maze of stacked containers. Some were marked with symbols he recognized: medical supplies, mining equipment, food rations. Others had warnings in languages he'd never learned. He'd stopped being curious about cargo contents years ago. Curiosity didn't pay. Container 47 sat in the darkest corner of the bay, away from the main loading zones. The metal was scorched, dented. It looked like it had been dropped from orbit. Arachin checked his tablet. No manifest data. No destination. Just a red flag, unclaimed, scheduled for disposal. He hooked up the dolly and started pulling. The container was lighter than it should be. Empty, probably. Or nearly empty. He'd haul it to the disposal chute, collect his credits, and a sound stopped him dot-soft. Barely there. Like a whimper, Arachin froze. He looked around the empty bay. No one else was nearby. Second shift had gone to meal break. He was alone. The sound came again. His heart kicked against his ribs. It was coming from inside the container. "Don't be stupid," he muttered to himself. "Just do your job." But his hands were already moving to the container's seal. He'd regret this. He knew he'd regret this. The locking mechanism resisted, then gave way with a hiss. The door swung open. The smell hit him, first not decay, but something sweet and strange, like flowers he'd never seen. Then he saw them. 2 infants lay on a thin blanket inside the container. They were tiny, impossibly fragile. Their skin had a pearlescent quality, shifting between silver and pale blue in the dim light. They weren't human, but they weren't like any alien species he'd encountered either. One of them made that sound again, a soft, desperate cry. Wren's breath caught. He looked over his shoulder. Still alone. His hands shook as he reached into the container. There was something else, a piece of polymer paper with words scratched across it in 3 different languages. He recognized the human text: abominations. Kill them or abandon them. They cannot be allowed to bond. His stomach turned over. The second infant opened its eyes. They were dark, endless, and looking right at him. Not with the unfocused gaze of a newborn. With recognition. With hope. "No," Arachin whispered. "No, I can't. I'm nobody. I can't even take care of myself." The first infant reached up with a tiny hand. Its fingers brushed his wrist. Warmth spread through him. Not just physical warmth. Something deeper. Like a door opening in his chest, letting light into places that had been dark for years. He saw flashes, not images, but feelings. Loneliness, fear, a desperate need for safety. They were inside his head. Or he was inside theirs. He couldn't tell. "Security scan, Bay 7. Greg's voice suddenly blared through the comm. "Unauthorized container access detected." Wren's military instincts kicked in before his brain caught up. He pulled off his jacket and wrapped both infants inside, bundling them against his chest. They were so light. He sealed the container, kicked the dolly aside, and walked quickly toward the service corridors. "Arachin, respond," Greg commanded. He didn't respond. His heart hammered as he moved through the station's maintenance passages routes he'd memorized during his first week. The places where cameras didn't quite cover every angle, where supervisors didn't bother to look. Behind him, alarms began to sound. The infants made small noises against his chest. Not crying, almost content. "What am I doing?" he asked them quietly. "You're going to get me killed. You know that?" One tiny hand gripped his shirt. He emerged near the private docking berths where his ship waited. The drift runner looked exactly like what it was, a battered cargo hauler held together by cheap welding and desperate prayers. But it was his, the only thing in the galaxy that belonged to him. The docking clamps were still engaged. He had maybe 3 minutes before station security locked down the bay. He ran up the loading ramp, placed the infants carefully on his bunk, and threw himself into the pilot's seat. His fingers flew across the controls. The ship's systems groaned to life. "Unauthorized departure," a mechanical voice announced. "Remain docked. Security personnel en route." Arachin ignored it. He rerouted emergency power to the engines, cursing the ancient systems. The docking clamps began to disengage, one by one. Too slow. Way too slow. Security drones appeared in the viewport, weapons charging. Then something impossible happened. The infants made a sound together, not quite a cry, more like a harmonic tone. The ship's systems surged. Power levels spiked across every console. The remaining clamps released simultaneously, and the drift runner shot forward with more acceleration than its engines should have been capable of. Warning shots laced past them. Arachin pulled hard on the controls, weaving between cargo ships and station architecture. The exit tunnel appeared ahead, barely wide enough for his ship. He aimed for it. The drift runner scraped through with centimeters to spare. Then they were out in open space, with alarms shrieking behind them and nothing but stars ahead. Ren's hands shook on the controls. He set a course away from the station, toward the dead zones where patrols didn't bother to go. Only then did he turn to look at the infants. They were awake, both of them. Those dark eyes watched him with an intelligence that shouldn't exist in newborns. "Okay," he said, his voice unsteady. "Okay, we're officially fugitives now. Hope you're happy." One of them made a small, pleased sound. Despite everything, despite the fear, the uncertainty, the absolute certainty that he'd just destroyed his life, Arachin felt himself smile. "Guess you're mine now," he whispered. "Stars help us all." The ship's computer beeped. "Incoming transmission encrypted. High priority." Arachin opened it cautiously. A face appeared on the screen. Female. Humanoid, but not human. Her expression was cold. "You have taken what does not belong to you, human," she said. "Return the bonded ones, and your death will be quick." The transmission ended. Arachin looked at the infants again. They'd fallen asleep, peaceful and trusting. He turned back to the controls and pushed the engines harder, heading into the deep dark where no one would follow. Behind him, across the galaxy, a dozen different species received the same alert. The bonded ones were active again, and this time they'd attached themselves to a human. The hunt had begun. The ship's medical scanner beeped for the 100th time, still struggling to make sense of what it was analyzing. Arachin stared at the readout, exhaustion pulling at his eyes. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. The infants, he still didn't know what else to call them, lay in a makeshift crib he'd built from storage netting and thermal blankets. They were changing. He could see it happening, hour by hour. They were larger now, their features more defined. What should have taken months was happening in days. "Genetic acceleration detected," the computer's flat voice announced. "Growth rate abnormal. Biological age inconsistent with time elapsed." "Tell me something I don't know," Arachin muttered. One of the twins opened her eyes. Her. He was sure of it now. though he had no idea how. She looked at him, and that warmth flooded through him again. That connection he couldn't explain or resist. He'd started thinking of them as Sira and Nyx. Sira for the one with the slightly lighter skin tone, who seemed calmer. Nyx for the other, whose eyes held a fierce intensity even at this impossible age. Sira reached for him. Her fingers were longer now, more coordinated. When she touched his hand, he felt her emotions as clearly as his own. Hunger, curiosity, and something else, affection. Trust so complete it made his chest ache. Okay, he said softly. Food, right. He'd raided the station's emergency supplies on his way out, grabbing anything that might work. The nutrition paste was designed for a dozen different species. The twins consumed it eagerly, their small hands gripping the container with surprising strength. As they ate, Arachin checked their course. They were deep in the Veil sector, now a region of space, so cluttered with asteroid debris and radiation pockets that most ships avoided it. Perfect for hiding. Terrible for living. His supplies would last another week. Maybe 2 if he rationed carefully. After that, he didn't let himself think about after that. The proximity alarm chirped. Ren's hand flew to the weapons console before he caught himself. His ship had exactly 2 defensive capabilities. A mining laser that barely qualified as a weapon, and shields that could maybe withstand a micrometeorite, but the sensor reading wasn't hostile. It was a distress beacon. Human, Arachin hesitated. Every instinct screamed at him to ignore it, to stay hidden. But it was human. Out here in the Veil, that meant someone was in serious trouble. He changed course. The ship was a modified transport, twice the size of his own, drifting near a large asteroid. Its engines were dark, life support flickering. Arachin hailed them on the standard frequency. This is the Drift Runner. I'm receiving your distress signal. What's your situation? Static crackled. Then a woman's voice, strained but steady. Thank the stars. We hit a debris field. Main power's gone. We've got maybe 3 hours of backup life support left. I can tow you to the nearest outpost, Arachin said, calculating distances in his head. It'll be tight, but no outposts, the woman interrupted. No stations. We can't risk it. Something in her tone made Arachin pause. You running from something? A long silence. Aren't we all? Fair point. I've got spare power cells, Arachin offered. Enough to get your systems online. But I'm coming aboard. No tricks. Agreed. And thank you. Really. The woman's name was Mira. She was in her 40s, with short dark hair going gray at the temples, and eyes that had seen too much. Her partner, Jace, was younger, with nervous energy and quick hands that kept checking a pistol at his hip. Relax, Mira told him as they watched Arachin work on their power coupling. He's helping us. He's human, Jace countered. Out here, alone. That's suspicious. So are we, Myra said simply. Arachin finished the connection. Their systems hummed back to life. Should hold long enough to get you somewhere safe. Where are you headed? Mira and Jace exchanged glances. Nowhere specific. We're traders. Off-book traders. The kind the authorities don't like. Smugglers, Arachin translated mentally. He understood that life. Then we're not so different. What are you running from? Jace asked, still tense. Arachin opened his mouth to deflect, but Sira's cry echoed from his ship through the open airlock. All 3 of them froze. Is that? Myra's eyes went wide. You have a child on your ship? 2, actually. The words came out before Arachin could stop them. He was so tired. Too tired to maintain pretense. Myra moved toward the airlock. Jace grabbed her arm. Myra, we don't know. They're babies, Jace. She pulled free and crossed to Ren's ship. Arachin followed, his heart pounding. But what else could he do? Myra stopped at the entrance to his cargo hold, staring at the makeshift crib. Sierra and Nix looked back at her, their dark eyes luminous in the dim light. They appeared maybe 6 months old now, though it had only been 3 days. "Sweet stars," Myra whispered. "What are they?" "I don't know." Arachin stood beside her, defensive. "I found them. Abandoned. Scheduled for disposal." "They're beautiful," Myra said softly. Then her expression changed. "And they're bonded, aren't they?" Wren's blood went cold. "What do you know about that?" Myra turned to face him. "Enough to know you're in more danger than you can imagine. The bonded ones aren't just hunted. They're myth, legend. I thought they were extinct." "What are they?" Arachin demanded. "Survivors," Myra said, "from a species the galaxy tried to erase. They're empathic, telepathic. They bond with a guardian, usually their parent, and that bond makes them powerful. Impossibly powerful. Strong enough that the major species formed a coalition to hunt them down generations ago. Why? Because bonded pairs overthrew governments, stopped wars, changed the course of entire civilizations. They couldn't be controlled, couldn't be bought. So they were eliminated." Mira looked at the twins again. "How long have you had them?" 3 days. And they already look this old?" Myra's voice rose. "The bond is accelerating their growth. They're syncing with you, becoming what you need them to be." Sierra made a sound, not quite a word, but close. She was looking at Arachin with such trust it hurt. "I'm not abandoning them," Arachin said firmly. "I wouldn't ask you to," Myra replied. "The bond can't be broken, not without killing all 3 of you. But you need supplies, resources, and you need to understand what's coming." Jace appeared in the airlock, his earlier suspicion replaced by something else. Concern, maybe. The bounty on bonded ones is galactic-wide. Every species, every faction. You're carrying the most wanted children in known space. Then I need to get them somewhere safe. "There is nowhere safe," Jace said. "Not in charted space." Myra touched Wren's arm gently. "But there are places to hide. People who might help. We know some of them. Why would you help me?" Arachin asked. Myra smiled sadly. "Because 20 years ago, someone helped us when no one else would. Because those babies deserve a chance. And because," she glanced at Jace, "we've been running long enough. Maybe it's time we stood for something." They spent 2 days together, the ships traveling in tandem through the Veil. Mira and Jace transferred supplies, food, medical equipment, clothes that might fit the twins as they continued growing. In exchange, Arfin helped repair their navigation systems. But more than that, they talked. Mira told stories of the old days, when humans had been explorers instead of survivors. Jace taught Arachin tricks for avoiding sensor sweeps. And both of them watched the twins with a mixture of awe and sadness. "They're bonding with you deeply," Myra observed one evening. Sierra and Nix were sitting up now, playing with a string of lights Jace had rigged for them. When they laughed, an almost human sound, the lights flickered in rhythm. That's their power expressing itself. They're connected to everything around them. Energy, matter, thought. How do I protect them? Arachin asked. "You already are," Mira said. "The bond goes both ways. They'll grow stronger as you grow closer. But Arachin, you need to prepare yourself. For what? For what they'll become. And for what you'll have to sacrifice to keep them safe." Nix crawled over to Arachin, pulling herself up using his leg. She looked at him with those bottomless eyes and made a sound that might have been his name. His heart melted completely. "Too late for warnings," he said, lifting her into his arms. "I'm already in too deep." Mira smiled. "Good. They need someone who won't give up on them. Someone stubborn enough to fight the entire galaxy. That's a lot of faith in one cargo hauler. Not faith, Myra corrected. Recognition. I know a fighter when I see one. On the third day, they parted ways. Myra gave Arishin coordinates to a hidden way station in the outer dark, a place where questions weren't asked, and humans still held some authority. If you need us, send a signal on this frequency, she said, transferring the code. And Arachin? Don't trust anyone else. Not with them. They watched Mira and Jace's ship disappear into the asteroid field. Arachin returned to find both twins awake, sitting together, holding hands. They looked like toddlers now. Their faces had Ren's stubbornness in them, somehow. His determination. Well, he said to them, looks like it's just us again. Sierra stood, wobbling slightly, and walked 3 steps toward him before sitting down hard. She looked surprised but pleased. Nyx clapped her small hands together, and the ship's lights brightened. Arachin laughed, despite everything, despite the danger, despite not knowing what tomorrow would bring. For the first time in years, he didn't feel alone. All right, you two, he said, gathering them both close. Let's go find somewhere we can call home. As the drift runner set course for the outer dark, Arachin didn't notice the small tracking device hidden in the supplies Mira had given him. Didn't notice it sending out a single pulse before going dark. Far away, on a warship covered in old battle scars, a hunter named Kale received the signal and smiled. The chase was about to get interesting.